Well, how are you finding the coffee here versus Oz? Apparently, there's actually a genuinely
huge gap.
Yeah.
But I drink I'll drink like a latte home,
Right.
which I find a latte hard to drink here, but black coffee is very similar. I can drink as much black coffee here as
Yeah, it's mad because here as I speak, like the coffee in the UK is still comparatively to parts of Europe like way ahead. But like compared to you guys,
Yeah.
it's...
Well, I think so. The actual coffee now, I think, is as good, right? Like the actual, the beans, and you've got like lots of good roasters and stuff. But yeah, it's also just a little bit different. Like I think you use slightly different proportions, and it's just what you're used to, and that probably is like normal. But for someone that's always had like slightly different amount of coffee and milk, it's just not.
When did it start getting big? The coffee scene.
Melbourne, I don't know when. Maybe
Melbourne was the flat white, the home of the flat white.
Melbourne's the original coffee scene, and it was for a long time in Australia. It was like outside of Melbourne, you couldn't get a good coffee. That's what I'd say.
Yeah.
So I grew up. I mean, it's probably getting into.
Yeah, we're rolling. We're rolling.
Yeah.
We just roll straight in. Yeah.
Like growing up, I started in cafes when I was like 11 or 12 years old. When my hospitality days started, and a coffee in Adelaide was like those are the days of like super hot, lots of foam on top.
Yes.
That sort of coffee.
Yeah.
Before you were like frothing the milk to a certain temperature so it's really creamy. It was just like boil the fuck out of it and it all foams up. So that was Adelaide, like when I was a kid. That was in,
So you were born in Adelaide?
Yeah, Adelaide boy.
So what's Adelaide where's that? Is that...
It's South Australia.
South Australia, yeah.
It's still a big city it's still like over 1 million people. So it's still like a decent sized city. But it's seen as one of like the smaller towns in Adelaide. Australia, pretty much everyone lives in one of the 5 or 6 cities or 6 cities.
Yes.
And they're all pretty big, but there's your big cities like Melbourne and Sydney, and then your tiny cities like Adelaide.
Yeah. And so then, the flat white, the coffee renaissance or the coffee birth started in
Melbourne, I would say,
Melbourne.
And then just proliferated out to all the other cities. And I think you can get good coffee now in every city in Australia.
No, I think as I was saying to you, mate, in Europe, it's you have the specialty coffee shops. Yeah, in Europe, you get like 1 or 2 like quirky cafes that are basically rattling out flat whites.
Yeah.
But then the rest of it is just crap coffee.
Yeah.
I was speaking to Rory Sutherland about this the other day, about why the coffee in those cultures is so, considering the food in France is so good or food in Spain is so good, but the coffee is just crap. He was sort of saying like in somewhere like London, because you have all these people flying in, it's such a cultural hub of Europe.
Totally,
you get all the kind of the osmosis effect of like betterment and increasing. So mate, look, thank you for doing this. I'm buzzing. I think what you're doing,
pleasure.
And we'll get into everything Eat Club is, but I interview a lot of chefs, a lot of restaurateurs. And, we're even doing a supper club in a couple of weeks' time at Black Bear Burger called Survive and Thrive in 2025. Yeah. Because people are like, how do you keep a hospitality business open?
Yeah.
I think what you guys are doing is fascinating, and the way you sort of looked at the problem from the wrong way around, like not a bottom line cost situation, but a top line revenue and demand situation.
Yeah.
But like, talk me through just you said you worked in a cafe at 11 years old. Like, how did hospitality sort of soak into your bones to begin with? And then how did that lead to the genesis of you creating this bad boy?
Yeah, cool. Well, it comes from a deep background in hospitality, I'd say.
Right.
Like I said, working in cafes from a very young age. I think that's like that's the Greek thing. Greek parents.
Oh, really? Yeah.
As soon as I was old enough, I was shipped off to the local cafe so I could start earning some money. And I loved it. I mean, I spent all of my weekends, early mornings, starting in the cafe, kind of training under this crazy Montenegrin boss that probably instilled every bit of work ethic in me that I have, I would say.
How so? What did he teach you?
He was just relentless. I mean, this is like the sort of cafe, and I think a lot of people that started working in some kind of cafe early would know. Super fast paced. Mm-hmm. You start off doing the dishes. You're like, frantically washing these dishes. It's the school of hospitality, which this is going to sound ridiculous to some people, but this is what I think a lot of people in hospitality were brought up in. You're working super frantically. You drop a plate that plate breaks, that's getting docked from your pay slip. Like
Wow.
you're like rock and rolling like that. This sounds ridiculous, but I think back on that pretty fondly. You really learn how to move, how to hustle, how to get things done. Slowly moved to the grill, learned how to cook food. Then I was on the coffee machine and eventually aged out of that and started working in bars and nightclubs. And
what sort of bars and nightclubs?
So a venue called Distill in Adelaide. It was a cocktail bar and a bit of a restaurant in the bottom and then just a pure nightclub on the top.
Right, yeah.
Started there as a glassy, then started serving cocktails and drinks, and became the general manager of that while I was studying. And that's, to jump into it straight away, where a lot of the core features of EatClub sort of first came about. So it was my first like full P&L responsibility of a business, which is amazing.
How old were you at this time? Age?
19.
Okay, yeah. So it really is in your bones then. Yeah.
So 19 GM of this venue. This was everything from, hiring and rostering, doing the ordering, the bits of marketing that I could do with what I knew about marketing back then. But that's, I used to do effectively, one of the core features of EatClub is bringing people in at the exact times that the venue needs it. We did that in a really manual way. So I'd have people at the door taking physical addresses. This is kind of even emails existed, but
what year was that? Was this
2010, 2011?
Okay, yeah.
So we had emails. It's not like it wasn't there, but it was just like we were taking physical addresses at the door, like your residential address.
Yeah.
And then I would send a series of drink cards that were valid for certain times of the night, just to bring people in at certain times to create the atmosphere. And the earlier you created the atmosphere in the nightclub setting, it wasn't just that extra revenue you got from the people coming early, but there was this ticking point where the atmosphere kind of takes over, everyone's drinking behavior changes, and you start to make a very different amount of money throughout the night. I mean, that concept we took even further. Like we used to we'd let people do like a 21st or a 30th birthday at the space totally for free. You're allowed to come in and do whatever you want with the space until opening. But at 10 p.m. when the nightclub opened, everything had to just look like a normal night with lots of people in there. So all of your birthdays, all this stuff is out. And if you had a function, even if you didn't charge anyone for that function and you had 100 people in the venue when you opened the doors, the amount that you take from that night is like 2x. Like the extra money from the extra revenue from the function might be like 3 or 4% of your revenue for the night. Not very big, but you end up like literally 2xing your revenue or increasing it by 60, 70%. It's just by starting the night at 10 p.m. instead of midnight or 1 a.m.
That's fascinating. It's almost Rainmaker essentially, and then creating a groundswell of demand, and then it's almost like that whole social proof thing. As soon as you walk down I'm trying to think when I was last on piss, like quite a frequent thing, but especially when I'm around here. But if you go into a cocktail bar and it's like 3 people, automatically you're like, you see a load of people in there having a good time. Yeah. You're like, I want to be a part of that.
And it's so obvious. You can see it just by watching a group of people, right? Like, if someone has to be the first person in your venue, that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
Someone has to walk in first. A group of people walk in, they're the first people in the nightclub. Their thinking isn't like, oh great, we're settling in, this is our night. They're like, well, is this going to be the place to be tonight, or should we be checking something else out? Right? If they walk in and they're the first people, they might get one drink, they might nurse that drink for a little while, sit on it. But if they walk in and a function's just finished and there's 100 people up there and they're like, shit, this is happening, like drinking shots or let's get a cocktail, like it just changes the behavior completely.
You're studying, it's basically behavioral science. You're studying human behavior. One of the things I really believe is like this quite a big idea by Carl Jung, which is synchronicity, but you can believe two completely random things you can learn a lot about. And I think like advertising and marketing and restaurants, like, because ultimately a restaurant or a nightclub is just, you're looking at a small proximity of humans and how they behave, and you take lessons from that, and then you can influence that behavior, whether it's sending out, come at this time with manual addresses, or come and do your free 21st birthday party here. You're sort of positively manipulating behavior. And I think I'd love to sort of swim down that avenue with you a bit more, mate. But like, what are some of the other lessons you took from just kind of observing behaviors when you're in managing that nightclub at 19?
Well, I think one of the biggest lessons, and it's less about behavior, but it really taught me that volume was everything.
Right.
And I think I learned that like there is margin in food and drink, but if you're not doing enough volume for that margin to meet your costs and then become profitable, it doesn't matter what your prices are. It doesn't matter what your costs are. There's not enough people coming through the door and spending. And there was two pretty valuable lessons. One was this idea that you had to bring people in early and start the night, and that was really important. That's a really EatClub focused piece. But another piece was when I started managing the club, I really found out that because it takes some time to get it at full capacity, it was never really big enough to be at full capacity for long enough to make enough money. And one of the big changes that I made, I was studying law at the time, so I'd always put my little thought you pretty much think you're a lawyer while you're at law school. I haven't thought of myself as a lawyer since, but for sure. I went through a planning permission with the council and had to get someone to come and survey, check how many toilets there are, blah blah blah. I think I'm going back a while now, but we might have increased the top from 115 people.
So when you say the top, that's
the top level, top level, the capacity in that level.
Oh,
the amount of people. The amount of people that were.
Yeah.
I assume it's similar in the UK. Licensing for licensed venues, everyone can have so many people in that venue, mandated by whatever the licensing authority is.
Yeah.
Jesse, you've got a capacity if you're a 200-person nightclub, 500-person nightclub. I think we were about 115 initially, but at 115, it always felt like there was space there. Went through this planning permission. I think we got it to 175 maybe. And the difference that makes if you're full is huge. The amount of extra people that you can have in there drinking, it just makes such a massive difference. And then it changes the whole way you think about the cost base. You actually then, it flips from like, how do I save money here and there to make them profit? It's like, how do I now get more people in for more time? And we often see sometimes when you get too focused on the cost side, you sometimes stunt your business by trying to grow more profit, trying to build profit instead of growing your business by growing the revenue. And it's in the startup space now, we're trying to build businesses and technology. I think the general consensus when you're building a technology business is you get the volume first and then you optimize for your margins later once you're really at capacity. I think if you try and optimize for your margins as you're moving to capacity, you stunt yourself. You might make misses on service. You might make misses on the food.
Go specific on that.
You might be trying to optimize you're doing your roster and you just often understaff because you're trying to cut costs as opposed to being prepared, having a growth mindset where you're thinking, I'm building the business, I'm getting more people in every week. I want to make sure I've got enough people in here to deliver the right level of service, because you want those people to have the experience where they tell other people about it and you grow your business that way.
There's a quote by a guy I mentioned, he's sort of mentor of mine, Rory Sutherland, but he talks about, do you know who he is, the sort of marketing, he's a big marketing guy. He's been on this podcast loads. He works at Ogilvy.
I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah. I lie. I know. Yeah. It's become a big personality.
Yeah, he's become a good mentor to me, but it was interesting because I kind of absorbed all his books and learnings, and we sort of become mates. But one of his quotes I love is, at school you can't rewrite the question in an exam, but in business you can. And it's a lot of his thing is just reframing the question. So you ask a better question, you suddenly have a whole new way of looking at a problem, and then you solve that problem, which with you guys, it's like, I think so many restaurants think, okay, how do we keep costs down? How do we protect margin? And that's why you end up with things like, those sort of, what's it called? They started in COVID, like the QR
code table ordering.
It's like that's great, but fuck me, it ruins the experience, and then fuck me, less people come through the door. And I think one of your superpowers, mate, is being able to reframe the question and then solve a problem in a completely new way.
Totally, and there's a really clear example, and this is, we talk about the growth mindset as opposed to the accounting mindset. Like if you go to your accountant at the end of the year to look at how you performed, right? And a lot of restaurants do go, once a year, and that's really when they interrogate the numbers. I think everyone needs to do it more often, but that's sometimes, restaurants are super busy. You don't have time to be in those numbers every day. If you go to the accountant at the end of the year, you might end up with something like, oh, looking at your numbers, your Monday and Tuesday, you're actually losing money. And it could be the case on a variable basis. Their costs of opening were more than the revenue they pulled in.
Yeah.
And the accountant's suggestion will always be time to shut Monday and Tuesday, right? That's always the suggestion.
Every restaurant now, you can't. My mate's got a tapas bar in Clapham. Great, like on it's a good mate, but we have lock-ins there, like straight out of the thing. It's great fun, right? But shut Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Because you're still in the lock-in, probably.
Yeah.
You guys got to leave first.
Yeah. To be honest, he doesn't need the EatClub app. He just needs us there every week. But you know, he was saying it's because we can't afford to staff it, and I think it's, as you say, if they were to drop the price using EatClub, people come through the door, and then that solves that problem.
Well, there's two things, and we haven't even told people what EatClub does yet, but there's two things that kind of give you some more basis for that as well. It's like you can't afford staff really depends on, like, this gets talked about in the coffee context in Australia a lot with the cost of coffee going up.
Yeah.
And people are saying a barista costs so much money, it's going to increase the price of the coffee by $1 or $1.50. And I'm like, that's totally relative to how many coffees that barista is making an hour. Because there are cafes where the barista might make 10 coffees an hour. There are cafes where he's making 200 coffees an hour. The difference in his cost per coffee is wild, depending on how much volume he does. So it's not like there's the cost, all the input costs are relative to the volume because there is margin in every meal. And then what that leads me to is, how come you've got some days where you're really busy and some days where you're not? And I think this is natural in hospitality. You've got your week that builds to a Friday and Saturday night. And I think traditionally a lot of restaurants have been happy kind of, you know, breaking even or even maybe losing a little bit of money early week and then catching up at the end of the week. We just don't think that has to be the case. And what it suggests is that you've got a product that has perfect product market fit on a Friday and Saturday. And so on Friday and Saturday, you open the doors and people come in. People want to spend money. It's when people drink as well, so you're going to make more money per table, blah, blah, blah. But you're opening with the exact same product on a Tuesday, Wednesday, when people don't want to drink as much. They might not want to spend as much money. You don't have anything different for them. And there are lots of levers you can pull to differentiate your product to find product market fit. We offer one, which is price. I mean, price is
just go through some of those, because I think that's important for context, like lunch menus and shit like that. But like, what else?
Lunch menu. I think understanding the mindset of the customer. During the week, people still often want to buy food, but they might just want to buy the meal and not drink. And you want to create an environment where sometimes you feel comfortable going into a nicer restaurant and having a meal and not drinking and not feeling pressured to drink, for example. That could be one. The lunch menus are a huge one. Having a particular, call the piano man in. These are all things that can find you product market fit. It's probably a mix of all of them to make something work. But that's, I think, the miss. I just don't think the modern restaurant can have product market fit on 2 days a week and ignore the rest and say, I just don't know why they're not coming on these other days. There are levers to pull, but you have to do something with that space. There's too much rent.
Well, there's too much rent tied up in it. I love unintended consequences. So you may have product market fit Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, for example. Sure. But then to, as you say, gear yourself up for those 4 days, you actually reduce the quality of the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday by having less staff. And then you actually lose customers, because they'll be like, say, I don't know, panoply of delicious bites, whatever the fucking restaurant's called. They go in and they're like, oh my God, that was amazing on the Friday, Saturday. Go on the Monday, it's like there was no staff, it took ages, the food was a bit dodgy. That word of mouth is the greatest form of marketing. And then
without a doubt.
Yeah, so there's almost unintended consequences of not sorting out the Monday, Tuesday.
Well, there's also unintended consequences of closing as well. I know this great restaurant, let's go. You walk down with your friend, shit, it's closed. You go to another restaurant and you might discover another restaurant, or you're just, you've let someone down in that moment. Like it all adds up. Yeah. It all adds up.
Just list probably thinking, what the fuck is EatClub? Just quickly define it in a couple of sentences. Yeah. And then I really want to get into sort of the genesis of, I understand how hospitality soaks in your bones. You were doing all this stuff in this nightclub at 19. Yeah. What's to actually go and do it,
Yeah, it's a good question. So in a nutshell, we're trying to provide dynamic pricing for restaurants so that they can create.
I want to ask some dumb questions. Sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt. Just I think it's important. But like, so what is dynamic pricing?
Well, the idea is that you are, so in its purest form, it's offering the right price at the right time to get the customer sitting at your table.
Sure.
So what you're trying to do is find a price that every one of your tables is full, because you've got this big market and there's going to be someone willing to sit at your table at any particular time for the right price. That's like in its purest form. Mm-hmm. What we give venues the ability to do, where the product's at the moment, is they can jump onto our platform and in real time they can say, it could be a restaurant owner sitting in the restaurant. It could be a restaurant owner at home looking on the cameras or looking on their booking platform and saying, I've got these 4 tables. There's no one's walking on the street. They're not going to get filled. I want to fill those 4 tables. I want to make some revenue on them instead of letting them go empty. And I want the atmosphere in my restaurant, blah, blah, blah. They can create really granular incentives for each one of those tables individually if they want to have those tables filled. And we've got a machine learning layer that predicts what particular offer needs to be put onto each table to get it filled. So it takes a bit of the guesswork out of it. But it's effectively saying, if someone walked in off the street and sat down at this table, my food cost is 25% or 30%. If they spent £100 on this table, I would ordinarily be putting $70 into the till, which means I can use that to pay my staff and pay everything. If no one sits at this table, I'm putting $0 through the till. At what point between $70 and $0 do I want, instead of letting this table go empty? Mm-hmm. And our platform helps you not only physically create the offer, but advises you what offer is required to do it. Mm-hmm. Then on the consumer side, we have a big marketplace of customers that love dining out. They browse the different offers on the platform. They find something that works for them. Let's say they find a 30% off offer if they're in a particular restaurant in the next 30 minutes. They're all time-limited offers, so the restaurant drives people at the exact times that they want to come in. That customer goes into the restaurant, eats and drinks like normal. They don't announce themselves as an EatClub customer. They just experience the restaurant like every other customer does. They tap to pay using the EatClub card, which sits in their Apple Wallet or Google Wallet, and all of the offer making gets done automatically for them in real time, with the reconciliation done behind the scenes with the restaurant. So it's really, on the customer side, really seamless and easy, and really takes what traditionally had a lot of shame associated with it, a lot of operational burden, picking up like a printed out voucher and saying, oh, hey, I've... So we've removed all of that, but we've also made it completely live and in real time for the venue as well, because the reality is, with where forecasting is at and the data that a lot of restaurants have, it's hard to predict exactly when you're going to be super busy or quieter than normal. You can use our platform to jump on in real time and make sure that any day that you might have been likely to lose money on a variable level, you can make that break even or a little bit profitable. A day that you're going to break even, we can turn that into a profitable day for you. And then on your busy days, you might not use it at all, or you might use it in between service. You might just use it early to make sure you've got your window seats full at 5 o'clock. There's lots of flexibility.
Demand.
I mean, and that's the window seats is really a direct analogy to the function in the nightclub early to get your first people there, so that when you're walking down the street, there's 3 restaurants in the street, you've got 2 empty ones and one with all the tables at the front full. You're going to walk into that one.
Yeah,
that's social proof. That's just human behavior.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Mate, it's such a good idea. And so then, I love people who do hard things. Doing this is hard. Like you guys started in Australia, now in London. There must have been, and we'll get onto these, a gazillion moments of just this ain't working, or some of the pushback from restaurants. There's a guy called Paul Graham. I think he talks a lot about product market fit. He does the Y Combinator.
Yeah.
He says that early bit is the trough of sorrow. And I think it's the most describable way. Like, I experienced it with this podcast. It's like no one's listening to it.
Yeah.
You're banging your head against the wall. You're screaming into the abyss kind of thing. Why did you choose this to be your hard?
Yeah.
Anything you could have picked. You could have been a lawyer,
I can only tell this story because it got really hard after this point. But the start of the business was not hard.
Because
I think we came at it with so much insight into how we were differentiating what we were doing compared to what had been done before, that the product market fit initially came quite easy. And the story I always tell is we start the business, we hired our first few salespeople who we hired the best 3 starting salespeople. Like we were pretty lucky that we got some really good people from the start.
Why were they so good? Because another thing I think is often it's not the idea, it's how good someone is at selling the idea.
Yeah.
'Cause you can have an amazing idea, but someone could be crap at selling it and it doesn't get going.
That all never done sales before.
Wow.
And we all sat down and worked it out together. And yeah, they worked in the company for many years.
What did you work out together specifically? Because there'll be a lot of people.
We sat in the room and started we started the cold calls together. We started we developed the pitch together and started going out to restaurants and pitching for the first time.
What was on this pitch specific? Because people like it when I go specific, because I think it really helps.
Look, this is the story, and I would feel like a dick talking about this if the hard times didn't come. So we'll get to the hard times soon.
Sure,
but
of course.
I'll tell you, we sat down in a room actually pretty similar to this. We rented a boardroom in
nice bougie office for your first one, mate.
Our office was we had it ended up being like we grew probably, I think it was a 4-person office, and we grew to like 12 people in that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, amazing.
Very, very cramped. We sat down, it was a big desk like this, and I was like, okay, I'm going to make the first call and see how this goes. And I had it on loudspeaker, started calling, and I gave him a pitch. It was called Tequila Mexican
That's a joke's name.
It's a Tequila Mexican, Chapel Street, Melbourne, or just off of Chapel Street in Melbourne. And he picks up the phone, and I gave him the very simple pitch. It was like, we've created this app. Look, the whole idea is that you're in full control. Whenever you need extra customers, you jump on, click a few buttons, and we'll send customers in. And his response was like, I've been waiting for someone to do this forever. And it was so ridiculous that all of the new sales guys thought I set up the phone call. They thought it was like a setup pitch. And so I think it was the right product for the right time. And we grew the business really well over those first 2 years. It was almost exclusively dine-in, sending people in to put bums on seats. And then start of 2020, COVID hits. We'd grown to a certain size. We're in, I think, 3 or 4 cities in Australia at this point. COVID hits, all of our revenue gone overnight, and then the business becomes very, very tough for quite a few years.
Sink into that bit.
Well, I mean, we obviously had to make a ton of very tough and painful decisions to be able to get the team small enough, just because there was no revenue coming in for a period of time. We were really confident that everything was going to get back to normal pretty quickly, which it didn't at all, but that was what we felt at the time. And we decided very consciously, like at the board level, that we weren't going to pivot into something new like QR code table ordering or something that was kind of, I don't know if you remember, there was a lot of conversations around like the new normal.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not, people were like, maybe no one's going to dine at a restaurant again. I didn't really believe that, but the longer it went on, I was like, shit, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe things are never going to be the same again. Thankfully, they didn't. But we, during that period, continued to invest in the technology. And over COVID is when we built the machine learning stuff for the restaurant. So it predicts how offers are going to perform. Over COVID is when we built the card solution so that you can tap to pay and it all happens automatically. And we were building these quite complex bits of technology that we couldn't sell or use at all because dine-in wasn't open.
Yeah.
But we had to have enough confidence that it was going to be. And I think the longer that went off, you do doubt. You're like, shit, have we just wasted all this money on these things that maybe no one's ever going to be able to see or use? But yeah, fortunately, it opened up and we've had our second, our rebirth, really, our second go at it.
When you said at the beginning about the Montenegro chap who like sort of taught you the ferocious work ethic, what are some of the principles or lessons you took from him as an 11-year-old that you then used to go through that trough of sorrow post-COVID?
I tell you one thing that I'd say I learned from him is that no matter how hard things get, you always pull through. You always get through the day. And it was even simple back then. I'd sometimes have a night out and I'd have to get up at 5 a.m. and front the cafe and, just pull it together. And sometimes you wake up and you're like, shit, there's no way you're going to be able to do this. And what do you learn? You always get through. And I think you start, every time that happens to you, there was heaps of moments like that at the nightclub where, you think, shit, I'm in trouble here. I've done something wrong or things aren't working. you always, like, you have those moments where you just, you can't sleep. It's like, it's tough, but you always get through it. Always get through it. And I think the more that happens, starting from back in the cafe days, the more you're exposed to that, it's almost like it builds the muscle. It's like you can handle something bigger going wrong, and subconsciously somewhere you start to believe that you're going to get through it, and that kind of pulls you through it. And I think that is a muscle that grows. And I think now probably things that would have kept me up for days 10 years ago don't worry me anymore. And the things that keep me up today would probably kill me 10 years ago, So it's like you really...
Do you know Tom Gosney, the pizza ovens? Gosney.
I know the brand. I don't know him, but I know the brand.
Yeah, interviewed him the other week, and I just love what he's built. I love the kind of how they've taken, basically essentially a piece of technology as well, although outdoor piece of technology, but the marketing, the brand, the community. He's a genius.
Yeah, totally.
And he said to me, he's like, mate, in business, right, every day you got to expect is the operative word. 1,000 missiles are pointing at your head, right? And they're coming for you, and you just got to duck, dodge, and dive them. And actually, you said that gets easier, like exactly what you're saying. Your capacity to take pain increases, but then also embrace problems, because even in the darkness, they're a sign that you're growing. And actually, it's like, if you've got a problem, once you solve that problem, you go the next step, and that's something I've sort of implemented with this, or something's going wrong with all the post-production stuff. It's like, actually, this is going to make us better. And but at the time, you're like, oh, everything's going Pete Tong, it's tits up.
Totally.
So what keeps you awake now then?
Well, what I do to avoid being kept awake is to just tackle things head on, really. I sleep particularly well. I think that's probably one of my superpowers, that I do get the sleep when I need to, no matter what's going on. But I generally don't, or I try not to go to sleep with something that is hanging over my head that I should have dealt with already.
Is there any example of that in the last 3 months?
There's probably 100 examples of it. I'm going to see if there's something acute that will make sense to everyone. I think it's just built into the everyday now. It's just like tackling something today, and it goes for the positive things. It's not always something going wrong. Something that you can do that's positive for your business. If you do it today instead of tomorrow or next week, you start to compound the impacts of that positive thing.
Wow, yeah.
Today as well. So I think it goes for all things. I don't have a solid example for you right now, but it's really just it's
more of a mindset thing. Yeah, wow.
And it's the same mindset that we instill in our team. I mean, we have salespeople going out and talking to restaurants, and a deal can take a long time, or it can be closed very quickly. Once a deal's closed, people can drag their feet, or you can get it live straight away. If you get a restaurant live today on the platform instead of tomorrow, not only is that great for our platform and the growth, because a chance that a customer comes on, finds something that they like, and becomes a transacting member of the platform. But it also it's for the restaurant, meaning that opportunity that they had, those tables that they have, every day that those tables are going empty, is money that they never get back. So it's almost it's almost so simple that it goes without saying. But if you can, I think, really embody that mindset, it certainly makes an impact. And some things, it's even now when you ask me that question, I think it sounds trivial, but I do think that is something that's built over time. That urgency becomes natural. Yeah. And I think it's pretty important. I
was thinking about this the other day, again, because I probably used to put stuff off, and I've been very bad at that. I was just like, I'd rather do this. This is fun. Right?
Yeah.
All the, actually, I was about to say superfluous shite, but it's not superfluous. It's important. It moves the needle. And again, I suppose over the last year, I've got better at just probably speaking to people like yourself, like Tom, which is like, just solve it, then you'll sleep at night.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I sort of was writing about was the pain of not doing the thing is greater than the pain of just doing the thing, ultimately.
Almost always.
Yeah, almost. Yeah. The pain of just letting it stew and fester is, because then that leads to, again, unintended consequences, the sleepless night, which then makes shit, just sort it out. Yeah. I love that.
And how many times have you, you need to call someone and confront something, you need to do it, and you can lose a whole day on it. Your whole day is affected leading up to this thing that you just don't do straight away.
Yeah.
And then you do it. The weight's lifted, and imagine you did it 12 hours ago. You would have had,
Oh God,
you would have had so much more productive day.
Yeah,
you know?
blissful day.
I'm still not perfect. I still have those situations where I'm just like, oh,
Where would you say you're weak?
Lots of areas. What would I like to improve the most? I think you touched on one just recently. You talked about how the chaos of your day, just one thing leads into another.
Yeah.
I think that is an important mindset to building a business, but it's actually can be really tough on the team that's building the business with you because you never stop to celebrate anything. And that's something that we're thinking about a bit now within the business. We've been growing super quickly. We have an incredible month. We tick that off. And then you're straight on to the next month, and it starts at zero, and you can't you can't say, "Oh, last month was so good." If this week isn't going so well now, it's really hard for me to separate that and work out how we sit back and smell the roses enough.
There's a quote I love: "You can't smell the roses from a galloping horse."
It's exactly what it is.
Exactly, yeah,
and there's a million things like that where these would be things that would have a positive impact on EatClub if we were able to solve them. But it's often it's the other side of the same coin. It's like one of the reasons why we're able to go so fast and move. But it's an interesting problem we have now. I mean, we're still a small company, but we've just exceeded 100 employees, which is way more people than I've ever been responsible for before. And I think it is just a difference. You're now not dealing with 20 of more or less the same person. You're dealing with 5 or 6 different personality types within the company, and it's an interesting challenge.
How have you had to evolve and change as your sort of external world and companies evolved and changed?
Yeah. I don't know if there's so many things that I've so consciously said I need to improve, but I think it's an open mindset thing that maybe I do have reasonably naturally. I'm sure I'm a very different manager now to what I was.
Yeah.
Probably learning how to let go of stuff, which I'm still learning how to let go of stuff, I would say. You've got to, it's that period when you first let go of something. You've got to learn to be happy with something being done slightly differently and sometimes slightly worse for a small period of time while other people pick up and learn and do it, as opposed to just continuing to chug along in the same way. It's that how do you scale question. It's never an easy, you never hand off the baton like a relay, there's the baton always gets dropped or something happens at some point.
One thing I wanted to explore, because you talked about the idea of product market fit, and this is why I was so excited for this conversation, mate, is you've basically got three of my favorite things, which is 1, restaurants, hospitality, eating great food, and enjoying life. 2, I love sort of growth and building things and sort of big ideas like product market fit. Sort of another thing we've talked about with a lot of guests on the podcast is, product market fit is not the same as brand exit fit. So I've interviewed a lot of more in the sort of CPG consumer goods space. What you may have product market fit, but you want to go and sell it to someone else. They're actually interested in different things.
Totally.
That's not a big idea. But so you talked about product market fit, and I think we can learn at this cross section. But first question is, what has sort of just dining at restaurants, and that sort of, again, sort of back to that sort of behavioral economics, observing things. What lessons have you taken from that, which you've then applied to sort of the growth and the marketing of the business as well?
Well, mate, I think dining at restaurants, firstly, is like fabric of society stuff.
Same.
Like this is the first thing. That's why COVID was even scarier. Like, there's nothing that I enjoy more than meeting up with some mates and going to a restaurant and having some wine and having some good food. I think it's like very important generally for restaurants to survive and thrive. What do we take out of it? It's funny. There's a few things that when we're building a tech business, we focus on really heavily. And this is almost the flip side of your question. What do I think? How do I think restaurants could benefit from maybe how things are done in the tech space? One thing that we find really interesting, and we try to build the product in a way that can help restaurants understand this as well, when we're building a tech company, you acquire your customers. It costs some money to acquire that customer, and that just gets them in the door. And then once they're in the door, you're really focused on how often do they repeat? So when do they come back to your product? What frequency do they come back in a period of time, over a month or over a 6-month period? And how much do they spend over that period of time? What's their lifetime value? And I think that's like the only way you could build a tech business is if you knew that. On the restaurant side, we don't have that single customer view. And a restaurant might think they have a customer. So someone that, comes in, they might we're getting closer to it, by the way. The restaurants are getting more and more data. Booking platforms, POS systems are starting to bring all that stuff together. But I think a restaurant might have a customer that they saw once, and it might be a restaurant owner that saw them, said hello. Now that is a customer of mine. What does that customer do from that point onwards is often a little bit of a mystery to the restaurant. And I think it's really interesting now that we're getting to a point where restaurants are getting more data, and the technology is enabling them to do this, to have a single customer view so that they know how much money should we be spending on acquiring customers? How often do I need them to come back? And then do I need to incentivize them to come back more often? Is it maybe more valuable for a customer to come back 4 times a month instead of 4 times a year if I take a small hit on my margin each time that they come in? Do I make more margin overall? And if we get closer to knowing who that customer is in the restaurant space, which I think is definitely coming, it's getting closer and closer, and it's something that we try to help restaurants understand when we're like, they might say, we're doing these offers to fill these tables, but I've had actually this same customer come in now 4 times this month for the offer. And that seems like it's a really bad thing or a really negative thing. I don't want this customer to continue coming in and having 30% off. And I was like, that customer A might never have been before. He might have been before, but never been as often. Mm-hmm. How much money each visit are you making after the food cost and the cost of the offer that you're giving? Let's say you're making $30 instead of the $70 if he came in on his own. If he's coming just twice as much as before, he's as good as any other customer, and he's filling tables and creating atmosphere at the same time. Like you kind of flip it to its like reframing. Pure economic benefit, and there's real opportunity there.
Yeah,
there's real opportunity.
That's the thing I was going to ask you is what have been some of the pushbacks or common misconceptions or like with your sales guys when you were selling it, of like, actually this isn't a good idea? Because I understand it in principle, it makes total sense, but as you say, and that's why I like to go along with these conversations, you can get into the depths of nuance, which is like, I don't want matey coming in 30% each month. Or sorry, 30% 4 times a month. Or do you get to a situation of, say they've got a local in the restaurant that they absolutely love, I don't know, Tilly and Mark, a couple with a cute fucking chihuahua, and then some bloke and his missus comes in and they pull out the card and they get 30% off. Does that piss off that customer? Like, what have been some of the objections and how have you swam around them?
That's where the card is beautiful, because it's so discreet and anonymous. No one else knows. The card really allows you to move to. When's the last time you jumped on an airplane?
Mate, ages ago. December.
Did you know the person sitting on either side of you?
No.
Just random people?
Yeah.
They 100% paid a different price than what you paid to jump on that flight. Maybe a wildly different price.
Yes.
One of them might have paid half as much as you. Does that piss you off?
But I didn't know about it. Yeah.
It's exactly the same with the card. But I'll tell you, the biggest objection, the biggest misconception is on the economic side. So because there is so much noise around low restaurant margins, and it's true, a lot of restaurants are suffering from really low net profit margins. At the end of the year, when all of their costs have come through, they might make a couple of percent net profit. That's what people hear in the news. That's what people hear in the media, right? It's a low net profit business. And so if that sometimes then confuses people when they say, okay, well, if I made 5% net profit last year, how can I possibly give a 30% offer to get someone in to fill a table? Like, does that mean I'm losing 25% on that table? And the answer that we give and we try and help people understand is that if that customer wasn't coming to sit at that table, they were never going to come. There was $0 there. It doesn't impact your net profit at the end of the year. But if they come, your food cost is 30%, your cost of the offer is 30%, so there's 40% left. whatever that 40% is, let's call it $40. Let's say they spend $100. Technically, your net profit at the end of the year should be your 5% plus $40.
Yes.
Because it's an incremental customer that you didn't have before, and there is margin. It's this disconnect between what your net profit is, your net margin is, and what your gross margin is.
Yeah. Well, mate, as I said to you, one of your superpowers, I believe, is, and I think we talked about this previously, is like contrarian views, is like looking at problems from the other way around, or I love sort of behavioural e-commerce. I keep badgering about this, but the perception of value and the way you can sort of almost see it like a special effect or a superpower, like the whole thing of, the reason they sell Rolls Royces next to it's like sort of price anchoring. The reason they sell Rolls Royces at yacht shows is a 200 grand, 300 grand Rolls Royce next to a 25 million yacht. It's
nothing.
It looks like fuck all. It looks like a lollipop. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
But it's all they've done is put it there. Same thing what you just said about the plane seats. And it's like, if the restaurants kick the discreetness of it, it's like, well, did you just get a plane? It's like, you just change people's... I think a lot about getting these hard, big ideas, especially B2B ideas off the ground, is you just have to basically change people's context and anchoring, and then it's like, oh yeah, it makes sense.
Well, you've got to change. Yeah, you've got to change the perception, but then you also have to execute in a way that works as well. And I think that's really important. So we're not just coming in and preaching that, that they should be doing X, Y, and Z, but we've built a product that takes into account the issues. Like, imagine if each person, imagine on the plane, if each person on the headrest in front showed the amount that they paid for the seat, then you'd probably be a little bit annoyed that Joe Blow next to you paid half the price for the flight, right?
Yes.
You've got to understand that. Yeah, no one wants to feel like they're, have not got the same deal as anyone else. But the reality is the price was right to get you onto that plane, and the price was right to get the person next to you onto that plane. And because they got the price right most of the time, they've got the plane as full as it can be. That's really the lesson. You have to take this, which is really, it's like an irrational problem. It's like, why do you wanted to get from A to B? You had so much money, depending on how much you wanted to get there. You had so much money to spend. Mm-hmm. They found you found a ticket which was right for you. You got from A to B. You should be pretty happy. See how just knowing that how much the person paid next to you, it feels like it should. Yeah, it feels like it should be a problem. But is it a problem?
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not, and it's genius the way you guys are doing it. So yeah, we talked about sort of product market fit. What are some other big ideas you've taken from tech or learnings that you've applied to building this business?
It's a really good question. What are the big takings? I'd tell you an interesting one that I think comes down to just pragmatism. Yeah. I think one of the reasons why we've been successful in getting a great restaurant network on board. Australia, we've got about 3,500 restaurants that use it in Australia. We're just under 300 restaurants now in London, so it's growing very quickly. We meet restaurants where they are. We have our salespeople that have a hospitality background and know how to talk to restaurants, and they do it restaurant to restaurant and pound the pavement. I think a lot of businesses are pretty obsessed, especially today in like the AI world, in like automating everything, and like, you shouldn't have to leave the house anymore to get all your sales. I think people try that all the time in the hospitality space, and it misses one of the, like, what is the essence of hospitality, which is like the people to people thing. And so this is actually an instance of like this technology mindset of continuously automating and getting, removing the human element of it. It just doesn't land in hospitality. So
you know what I was saying about wanting to learn about, almost tech to restaurant, restaurant to tech. That's why I was so fascinated by this conversation. Is all the sort of their cost of acquisition, lifetime value of a customer so important to a restaurant.
Totally, yeah.
But then also like hospitality you need to fucking have good crack with someone and be able. That's how you're going to sell someone. And as you say, it's so pragmatic and so basic and so simple that it's almost people don't think about it.
Well, when I was in hospitality, the cafe and the bar before I was managing, right? If someone picks up the phone and ask for the manager, it's like, no one's there. Like as soon as you've worked at any hospitality venue for long enough, if someone picks up, ask for the manager, it's generally the manager's not here, So you've got to understand hospitality to be able to sell into the hospitality space. And I think hospitality is it's an incredible industry. One, there's thousands and thousands of restaurants. So much of our life is based around food and drink. There's so much optimization in the restaurant space still to come, I think. And I think technology will play a big part in that. But I think it's not like, for me, it's what parts do you optimize and what parts do you say, no, this is how
what other bits do we
works.
not optimize?
Oh, I mean, there's lots of stuff I would say that's not optimized.
Yeah, such as?
I mean, there's still...
No, as in we should never optimize.
Oh, what should we never optimize?
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah. I completely get the humans buy from humans.
Robots making the food in the kitchen.
Fuck that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Like that's not...
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, that's not for me what hospitality is. Chefs, with all of their craziness, is what hospitality is. That's like
1,000%.
That's special. What else shouldn't we do? I mean, like, it does depend on the format of the restaurant a little bit. So, for example, you go to a McDonald's now and you put your order into the screen. I don't mind that. I don't really want to do that at a restaurant or a cafe. I think that's for me the limit.
Because that's what I was speaking to Liz about before, is we have this umbrella term hospitality, but actually it's like a kaleidoscope of nuance and different textures.
Totally,
and as you say, it's like you walk around here, sort of bar, well, the restaurant we're in now, right? St. Bart's, it's very different to a Macca's.
Totally.
Right? How has that impacted? One of the ideas I love is like the 2D map. The 3D terrain is never the same as the 2D map, and it's
Explain that. I don't know that one.
So the 2D map is, i.e., hospitality is the same. So we're gonna have a sales team, and you're gonna go out and go out on the street. Here's your sales pitch, mate. Bosh. They walk around here. There's 4 different restaurants. One's small plates. One's McDonald's. One's Nando's. One's a bougie Michelin star place like this. That 2D strategy or 2D map, when they come to the 3D terrain, is like there's so much nuance.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of different parts to that. Firstly, it's what is the sequencing you need to set up your business. I mean, when you're creating a marketplace, which the whole idea is this is most valuable to restaurants when the marketplace has enough liquidity, there's enough traction and volume going through it that anytime St. Bart's has a spare table, they know they can reliably fill it in a short amount of time. That's like what marketplace liquidity looks like. So
marketplace liquidity is
the liquidity point is just like liquidity in anything is like how well do both sides of it interact and meet in the middle and find a sale. So enough offers from restaurants, enough customers on the platform so that it's at some kind of equilibrium. When a restaurant needs a table filled, there's customers on the other side to fill those tables.
Yep.
And that's we both the customer, EatClub, and the restaurant all have an interest in getting that marketplace to that liquidity point so that it's got utility for everyone, right?
Yes.
And there's a process or a sequencing of things to get it there. And you generally go sort of segment by segment. You don't want to just one day open a suburb for EatClub and have one McDonald's, one St. Bart's, one, because it's like maybe you'll have something for the customer when the restaurant needs to fill a seat, but probably you won't because it's kind of scattered in a bit of everything. And so you focus segment by segment just to build the marketplace. This is not like, this is not super romantic. This is just creating a marketplace. You go locally, so geo by geo, and you go segment by segment within that geo. Yes. At the same time, within that suburb at the same time. Or do you call it suburbs here? You call them neighborhoods? What do you call them?
More,
Postcodes, whatever.
No, but it's just, mate, what I'm picking up from you is common sense is so uncommon, I think, sometimes. It's like when you're describing to me, it's like, the salesperson, if you're selling to hospitality, being hospitality, and even like the marketplace, as I was saying, I probably convoluted it. Yeah. And it's like, just geo by geo, segment by segment.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it's not that you go with whatever segment you think is what's most important to begin with, and then you add more on. But like in Australia, for example, where we've got thousands of restaurants, the rule is not you come on EatClub for fine dining restaurants or for mid-premium restaurants or for casual dining. The rule that we're trying to build, or the rule's the wrong word, the perception of the app that we're trying to build is whatever you decide, whatever type of dining you decide for on that particular night, you're going to find a venue that is good at what they do. And that's like the broad requirement for any venue. You might have this hole-in-the-wall dumpling place that it's like, how can you possibly have a hole-in-the-wall dumpling place and then this great fine dining restaurant on the same platform? Well, what brings those two venues together is not the segment, it's not the type of food, it's that they both do what they're meant to do really well. And there's a place for every venue that does what it does well on our platform. You try and avoid, you don't want to have too many, you don't want to have a marketplace full of tourist trap venues that are really there just to look pretty but don't do good food and good service. You don't want venues that just don't do good food, and those do exist. Like it's like in everything, there are people that come in, hospitality from different angles, but there are so many segments of venues that do it well, no matter what the segment is, and they are just as valuable. Like for us, a fine dining venue is just as valuable as a very casual venue, even hole in the wall venue that just does what they're meant to do really well.
And then I suppose you get the sort of the thing I learned from a lot of people I've spoken to is that almost your distribution is your marketing, whereby the restaurant's done a lot of the heavy lifting. Say you're in the Fat Duck, maybe the Fat Duck probably wouldn't be the right one for this, but like
I don't know the Fat Duck.
It's Heston Blumenthal's 3-star restaurant in Bray, but you get to level. My friend's building a brand called Bativo. I don't know if there'll be in a lot of the bars around here, so alcohol free, but they position it kind of similar. They look at they ask the question the wrong way around, which is it's kind of like artisanal crafted stuff for like wild hedonists. It's beautiful branding, yellow bottle. But Imma's whole thing is we're trying to build this brand, so we're just going to go and get into all the best. Doesn't matter what it is. Yeah. But then all of that on branding on the menus is you're leveraging all the status of those sites, and just the idea begins to spread wonderfully. It's so smart. It's I get it. It's just it doesn't matter what segment, as long as it's the golden thread for all of it is, do you do what you do well?
Well, it's important as well, because what we're trying to do is like every venue has a different curve in terms of peak and off-peak times, right? Every one of them is slightly different. The more casual venue might actually have a slightly better time filling their tables on a Tuesday and Wednesday because it is more casual. You can go in there and spend a smaller amount and still feel comfortable. Whereas a fine dining venue or a very trendy venue might have a much steeper peak on their Friday and Saturday nights and actually be much quieter on a Tuesday and Wednesday night. And what you find is when you're building this marketplace, the same way that restaurants need to be on an individual level, need to be available for their customers, if that customer is going to keep coming and giving them a go, we, when you open the app, need to have something available for our customers as well. And it's not like the more you have on, it dilutes it and then everyone gets less through the platform. The more you have on, the more frequently customers will check it, find an empty table, and be able to move quickly and fill that table for the restaurant. So like by us building frequency within our app, it correlates into our restaurant's ability to be able to, it correlates to utility for our restaurants, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are some of the other, we talked about the big ideas, product market fit, sort of pragmatic salespeople, any other sort of big ideas that you've taken from anything that you've applied to building this?
Well, there's still a lot of things that we're currently building. I mean, I'll give you one example, and this is probably another just one of those broader beliefs around startups and business generally.
Yeah. Until
you're in the space, you have no idea about the space. It's kind of like the idea, and people talk about it a lot when they talk about ideas and how, is this the right idea for me to focus on to build a business in? It's like, it doesn't matter what the idea is.
As in like, the business, or as like an opportunity within an existing business?
Yeah, well, so I have an idea. I want to start a business, and people labor over, is this idea right? Should I do another idea? What should I? And it's like, it doesn't matter what you choose, because you'll start building it and realize everything you thought would work when you started probably doesn't work.
Yeah.
And the thing that works is something that you never thought about until you're in the space and talking to people and building it, right? It's the same for pretty much everything we do at EatClub as well. When we came out with the card, we knew why we wanted to build the card, and we knew what it would do on the consumer side. We knew that it would be way more discreet, really easy, really seamless. We didn't really think, oh man, this actually means that onboarding is instant for a venue, because a restaurant owner can sign up to the platform and doesn't need to train their staff on anything or do anything different. That's a benefit that we didn't know about. And then we're like, it leads to one thing after another. And since being in the space and developing the card, one of the greatest innovations that we've now built is we can now tap the card and do a bunch of interesting operations from the POS level at the same time. You've got this connection between POS,
POS,
and
that's
card.
The stuff going to the till, right?
Yeah, they're going through the till and then the actual terminal. So we link all of that up, and we're now able to do things really interesting for a venue. So, for example, we deal with a venue that does a happy hour between 5 and 6 p.m. That happy hour is, that's what they're using to attract customers at that time. If they want to use EatClub, they can do it at the same time. We tap to pay, and if there's any happy hour drinks, we can identify them and not double discount them, for example. Like you can really get granular with what you're able to do in this couple of seconds. Because when you tap a card, you've only got a couple of seconds to do all of these operations. We can identify SKU level items, handle different items differently. So it really becomes like the opportunities really open up. And these are things that we were never thinking of when we started building the product.
That's a bit like the 2D map's not the same as 3D terrain. Until you're in the space, you don't know the space.
Exactly.
What have been some of the like unforeseen challenges or the monsters hiding in the weeds as you've got into the space? Because I think a lot of it, even with this, right? So I thought with lighting, right? I get a fucking light, I turn it on, done. There's whole color grading. There's a whole I'm going through that river of chaos now, trying to work that out. I was like, oh god, is there anything like that for you?
Yeah, I bet you. Yeah, without a doubt, there is.
Yeah,
you're starting to see a little bit of my personality, which is I don't dwell on these things very often, and then then I forget what we. I
just think it's good for listeners to understand.
Totally,
it makes it more like relatable.
What slows us down all the time? Things slow us down. I mean, even probably within the same, I just talked about this incredible uplift where we start to be able to read SKU level items at the point of tap, which really uplifts the experience for restaurants and means that they can create offers at more times without worrying about their in-house promotions at that time, which is a great utility. You then start to deal with hundreds of POS companies and the complexities that come with that. I mean, every uplift, every improvement, every feature creates a little bit of burden that you chuck into the back of the truck that you have to maintain and upkeep, and that's why these things get bigger and bigger. You have to, in a lot of ways, choose which ones you tackle and which ones you don't tackle, because if you tackle everything, you're dragging around a lot of crap behind you.
It's so true.
Yeah.
You know what's absolutely mental, mate? London is literally the greatest foodie city in the world, with so many absolutely banging, delish restaurants opening on the reg. I absolutely love it. But look, let's get real. There's lots of times where tables are still sat empty, when your favourite spot is silently struggling. And look, every single table counts. Everyone needs solutions, and they need solutions very fast. And that, my friends, is where EatClub comes in. EatClub is a profitability tool created by hospitality insiders, including the absolute Don, Marco Pierre White. EatClub gives top bars and restaurants control of a new stream of quality paying customers to fill those quiet times. No faff, no upfront costs, only upside. Look, if you're in hospitality and you want bums on seats when you need them most, please drop the founder Pan or the VP of the UK, Liz, both absolute legends. Drop them an email, fillmytables@eatclub.co.uk, fillmytables@eatclub.co.uk. That will get you straight through to them and they can help. Please, let's turn those empty tables into profit. In terms of contrarian beliefs and stuff, and I think it's something you do very well. You're a bit of a contrarian. You look at things differently, see the world differently. So I've got like a stitch on my back there. I tried to do too much. Tried to do a way too intense gym sesh hungover yesterday, so it sort of fucked me around. But the one of the questions I love is like, what's one truth you believe that most people would disagree with you on, and what would you say that is? And take your time on that because it's not an easy question.
Yeah. And I feel like I've given you a few of those, but I'm going to pick one of the ones that I think's most valuable. Is it going to be a cop-out if I use one of the ones we've already...
No, mate, yeah, it makes it more salient.
Okay, well, here we go. And we talk about this a lot in our product org. This is actually, I think, one that we've actually been discussing a lot recently, and it's in context with some of the products that we've been building recently. If we can imagine it, we can probably make it happen. And this sounds kind of fluffy. It sounds like whatever, but you'll be amazed how many people we speak to about certain things that we want to make happen, and we'll be told that it's not possible, or the technology doesn't exist yet, or it can't be done. And we work out a way to get it done. The way we do the card was impossible for so long to so many people. But we believe deep down that we're going to be able to make it happen, and we find a solution for it. I think it's especially true in technology because there's so many ways to do the same thing. I think that's what people forget. Like, something might not have a clear path from A to B, but you add C and D somewhere along the line and bounce something off of something else, and then it's possible again. And I think if you can build that culture, and I talk about this with our CTO a lot, who shares that mindset with me, and I think this is a big reason why we've been able to build some interesting stuff that hasn't been built before, and we're not, frankly, proud of the fact that we're not building a business that is just taking pieces from what's been done before, but we're trying to develop something new, and most of the solutions that we come up with are novel and haven't been done before, so we're really proud of that. We're talking a lot now about how do we instill that into the broader team as our product team grows, to 30 or 40 people soon that will have just developing and coding. How do they all believe that?
Yeah, how do you do that on a day-to-day where people think like the impossible becomes possible? Because I love that as
I keep reminding people of the examples.
You just sort of, I suppose once it's done, but say I'm a new person joining in London. Yeah. Well, what's the way? How do you do that?
Well, I think you've got to do it a little bit before the person joins. That's part of your hiring process,
right?
As well.
Okay.
Because it is like, I think everyone's malleable to a point. Everyone can learn new mindsets, but I think there's definitely some people that will start off closer to that mindset than other people. So it's part of your hiring process. But then it's like it's showing people, it's examples, right? And it happens all the time. We'll have a something that just comes up that we just don't think we can get it done, and then if the response is no, we'll be able to work that out. Like if that's just always the way forward, there will be a way. Man, I can't think of many examples within the product that we haven't been able to nut something out that was most of the way there. I
think the best bit, or the most salient piece there was A to B may not work, but you add in C there, D there, then you eventually get to B. That's essentially the impossible to possible on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And then I suppose the way you see where C and D is on that map is through sort of contrarian thinking, or like reversing questions, which is, the biggest question you reverse is with the businesses. It's not it's not a cost-saving exercise. It's kind of a bring people through the door. It's not a bottom of the P&L, it's the top of the P&L. It's like, it just makes so much sense.
Well, and this is I don't necessarily know why I adopted this view. It's almost definitely from people that I've worked from in the past, as opposed to my parents. But I'll tell you an analogy from my dad. When I started getting into startups and business, and knowing that I wanted to do a business of my own and tried a couple of things. I remember speaking to my dad, who's a mechanical fitter and a boilermaker, so just working in trades. And I'd be like, what are these things? What are these tools that you use that, could be upgraded? What you say, like, have you ever thought, what if you changed the angle of this screwdriver or something?
Sure.
And my dad always responded, he'd be like, oh, there's so many people looking at this stuff. Like if someone was going to work that out, they would have worked it out already, Like
Wow.
That's his mindset. Whereas I'm just like, oh, almost nothing exists now. And every year, all these new things exist that didn't exist before constantly. And that's a mindset thing. Like, and it's also I think deep down, it's a belief that you can make anything that you want to make.
Mm.
And it is definitely a mindset that most stuff isn't optimized yet. There's a long way to go.
When you say most stuff isn't optimized, like
I think
if you were to create almost like the Utopian restaurant potentially, right?
Paying the house hospitality, okay.
Yeah. We fit around.
Yeah, let's do it.
Utopian restaurant, Shoreditch High Street, down the road, to survive and thrive in 2025. And not necessarily just using, I think we've talked a lot about what we can do with EatClub, but like other ways.
Yeah.
What would you sort of do?
I'll tell you a concept. I'll tell you about a concept that I really like.
Yeah.
That my cousin has in Byron Bay. I don't know if you know Byron Bay
Is that Sydney?
It's it's in New South Wales in the same state.
Oh, man,
it's kind of like, it's called
I'm chatting bollocks here. Yeah.
well, you nailed it.
Yeah.
It's a pretty, Sydney's where most things are, so you're doing pretty well.
It was an A or B.
It's actually, it's like an 8-hour drive north of Sydney, which probably sounds insane for 8 hours. You'd be like in the middle of the Atlantic or something.
Yeah, well, proper Scotland. Yeah.
So she's got a restaurant that I admire it a lot. I think it's like a really interesting concept. It's not a concept that can work everywhere, and it's different for everyone, but I'll tell you how it works. The first thing is it's a fixed amount per head that you come and sit, and it's kind of set menu, but it's like Greek style. Just you get whatever they cook. It will be some souvlaki, it will be some some appetizers. You get a few choices, like, do you want chicken or pork souvlaki? You get a few choices like, I don't know, do you want some squid or some chicken? But very few options. You book in, they know how many people are coming. It's a fixed amount per head, so you also know how much you need to spend on every person that comes.
Yep.
It's BYO alcohol, so people just love it for a party and come in and like bring all their booze and do what they want. From an operational perspective, you always know how much staff you need on each day. You know how much food you've got to buy in to be able to service all of those people, so there's very little waste. And it's just a vibe because it's so casual and easy. You all rock up, you all start drinking, the food just starts coming out. You don't have to worry about a menu and ordering. It's like really simple. And I don't know, I'll make this up. I think she's maybe got 100 tables. And it's hard to get a table there because it's so casual.
It's not just one big group though.
No.
So how do they get them all to line up? So they just say you come in at this time. What's the crack with that?
They honestly manage it with quite a bit of flexibility. You come in and out. They do a couple of sittings a night, but they're not like perfect sittings. It's really like Greek style taverna, but in a modern Australian setting.
Wow.
That works, and it's accessible. You could go there for a casual dinner, but you also go there for a birthday. Yeah. It's like nailed that kind of multi-generational. There's parents that go there with their kids, young people that go there for a bit of a party, old people that go there. So it's a great concept. It's really casual, but works. And then the food waste thing for me is really important. Like, you more or less know what you've got to prepare. And all of it goes because everyone gets most of the same stuff.
I love, again, I want to get some more of your examples, but why I love restaurants or hospitality is how you can just change the rules, change little things, again, sort of back to the behavioural economic stuff, and you build a whole different restaurant. Have you been to Dishoom since you've been out yet?
And previous times as well. I love going to Dishoom.
Yeah, so like, again, this is a Rory thing. He's good mates with the founders. He said everyone that came to Ogilvy, or like one of the recruits, this was 20, 30 years ago, one of the things they'd do to sort of test their creativity is they'd say to grads, okay, we need you to get people in for lunch at a curry house.
Yeah.
'Cause, I don't know, especially in the smaller suburbs, curry house it's either a takeaway jobby. They're all dark.
Yeah.
They're all
Yeah.
but the actual food's extraordinary.
Totally.
And they always used to do that to probe creativity. And then I think it was Shamil, who's the founder. What Rory says their genius was like open for breakfast. Again, this is your groundswell of demand. People see people in for breakfast eating. By the time lunch comes around, it's busy, and suddenly they are the geniuses that made people queue for curry at lunch round the block. And it's all again just taking these little things. Do you know the other one is they've actually been on the podcast. They're geniuses and just such lovely people from New Zealand. Actually, is Caravan.
Yeah.
So Laura, their genius is they sort of brought all day brunch over here.
Yeah.
But what she was saying is her whole obsession is the lighting of a restaurant.
Yeah.
So they'll have it really like bang like that. And we've actually done a few of our supper clubs there.
Yeah.
And just by changing the lighting as it moves, suddenly, and then again, just that little thing, they've created a whole groundswell of demand. And I love that. And it's, again, with your cousin's restaurant, is there you've gallivanted the globe to see, a whole sort of panoply of different restaurants. So is there any other real kind of quirky, esoteric ones that do things a bit differently?
Well, my favorite dining type is the Japanese Yakitori restaurant.
Right.
And that does not translate for some reason very well to Western culture.
Yeah.
But it's like the tiny 5 or 6 person bar.
Yeah.
Simple skewers.
Yeah.
And just, you go there, you're sitting next to probably someone you've never met before, you're drinking with someone you've never met, and you end up, by the end, whatever one you locked into is like the one you stay at, and you're all drunk and best friends by the end of the night, no matter what age you are. Like, that is one thing I'd love to see in London and in Sydney or Melbourne, a good yakitori.
Have you been to the Golden Guy district in Tokyo? It's that.
Oh, I've been to Japan, but whether I've been there,
so it's basically
my memory.
It's these. I went there when it was like the World Cup, 6 years ago now. But it's these. Essentially, it's this district, and every bar is completely different. So one will be doing like house music, one will be doing death metal, but you can only get 3 or 4 people in. And it was during the World Cup, so it was perfect. It's literally like an Englishman, an Irishman, a Kiwi, and an Aussie walks into a bar. It was fucking hilarious. Yeah. But it was just perfect. And I'd never, again, another complete example of doing things differently. And there's so much you can do in this space with that.
Yeah. Well, their dining culture, they do have legitimately unique dining experiences there that haven't yet made it.
Yeah.
Or haven't made it on at scale to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
A lot of solo dining that they're set up for there, which is quite
it's
unique. The boxes.
The boxes, and there's a curtain, and then that is weird because you basically it's a vending machine, ramen vending machine. Yeah. Press the button, and I was like, my dad was next to me, and our family and friends on the right. I was like, mate, what the fuck is this? Like trying to, it's hilarious. One thing I want to talk about is Marco Pierre White, and he's obviously got massive involvement. So talk to me about the first day you met him. What was that like? Where was that?
Well, I'll tell you how that relationship came about.
Yep.
When we were starting the business, one of my co-founders, Ben, literally started cold emailing all of the famous chefs, all of them, Jamie Oliver, Gordon Ramsay, Marco Pierre White. Unsurprisingly, no one responded. But after some time, Marco Pierre White's manager responded. They'd taken it to him. He thought it was an interesting concept that it resonated with him based on his work in fine dining restaurants. This is how this is where his view is very much like, especially fine dining restaurants. What we see is the greatest brands in hospitality. They're often put on a real pedestal, have the biggest opportunity cost if one of their tables goes empty. That's the other ones that have the most to benefit from.
Because, just to go a bit more granular on that.
Well, because there's heaps of input costs just to opening the restaurant in the first place, and the price point means that you've often actually got gross margin in the food, but lots of costs that you need that margin to spread across. So every empty table in a fine dining restaurant is a really big lost opportunity. It's a significant amount of cash that should be used to pay off the rest of the operation. More so than a cafe, a small cafe, for example, where you might make $15 of contribution normally. You'll make $7 of contribution per table on EatClub. It's $7 at the end of the day. $7 for that one table. It's great. It's important for your venue, but put that in a fine dining context. That one table that goes empty, you might be missing out on £200 or £300. You fill it with EatClub and you might get 130 or 140 pounds of contribution that you didn't have before. 10 or 15 tables a week can make a pretty meaningful difference to your profit at the end of the year. It's not huge amounts of activity you need to really change what your business looks like.
Yeah. But with fine dining, yeah.
Yeah, with the fine dining. But I'll continue the story though. So he was into the concept. We got him on board as a early investor and ambassador of the product. And we've caught up with him very regularly throughout the whole process. We had him with us in Australia two weeks ago. Did a bunch of filming, went to a bunch of restaurants.
Yeah, what's he taught you about how to dine? Because how to dine, the other side of this, there's an art to dining well. Like as a consumer, that's a real gracious thing. Like, what's he taught you about dining?
I tell you what is one of the best things about Marco, who is obviously responsible for a lot of how we see gastronomy today. He's a no fuss diner, and I would say he's about the food and the service. I'll tell you a story. One of the first times we had him, we were doing a shoot once, and we'd organised a whole lot of sandwiches. And he's looking at this sandwich, and he's like, "Is that real tuna? Not real tuna. Is that like fresh tuna?"
Right.
And I'm like, "Oh, it's not going to be fresh tuna. It's a bloody sandwich." I'm like, "What's he going to say about the sandwich?" He's like. And they're like, "No, it's canned tuna." He's like, "Oh, bloody good. I don't want any fresh tuna in my sandwich." So like, he's no fuss, He's
really?
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's good to be around. Really, it's enjoyable to be around.
He's actually one of the best things I picked up from him was when I watched his episode on Bourdain in the UK.
Yeah.
Again, reverse to the question, similar to what you guys do, is I think he says most people think a restaurant is food, service, setting. He would say it's actually setting, service, food. The setting and the service are what sort of create the. And I was as soon as I heard him say that on Bourdain, I was like, and actually kind of see that. Yeah, that's true, because you could have a banging spaghetti vongole and you're overlooking the glorious sparkling sunshine and the blue vistas of Ibiza, and it's unreal. Or I could be eating in the cupboard downstairs. It's exactly the same product. Two very different experiences.
Well, we've got some footage of him that's just about to come out where he speaks about that particularly. Like, if you don't have the atmosphere right in the venue, it doesn't matter how good the food is, that isn't the complete experience.
Yeah. What's he taught? Yes. So kind of jump into that a bit more. What's he taught you about all those things in terms of the atmosphere and all that stuff?
Well, lots of things, but I think he's really realistic about what our platform sets out to do, which is gives you an opportunity to create the buzz and to get the people on the seats that you wouldn't have otherwise. He speaks a lot about the practicalities of running a business. I think going back, one objection that a restaurant might have about joining EatClub is, what does it mean for my brand if I have offers on a particular platform? And his view on that is really, really clear. He talks about this like very overtly. He says, your number one responsibility as a restaurant owner and a business owner is to make the business and the restaurant work. He goes, it doesn't matter how good your brand is or you think your brand is. If you don't have people sitting down at your tables and chairs, that's all anyone remembers after they come to your venue. And this is like there's a bit of both. I don't think you can go fully one way or the other, but he'll be really strong on your number one responsibility is to make sure your tables and chairs are full and that your restaurant is operating. He talks about the knock-on effects as well. He'll often talk about and this is, I think it's very true, but never would have thought about it until he said it. When your restaurant is quiet and your staff have heaps of free time, they somehow deliver the worst service possible. And when your staff are busy and sometimes even a little bit run off their feet, somehow the service is often even better than what it is. And you see it. You walk into a restaurant as the first time, and this is probably talking about a more casual restaurant here, but the waiter's behind the till and on their phone and, oh shit, there's someone here and nothing's been prepared. And the first few dishes that they pull out just aren't as good as what they would be if on a rhythm and they're really rolling.
It's just, again, it's uncommon common sense. And
Yeah.
again, which you've clearly applied with what you guys do, is like keep the restaurant open, number one.
Yeah.
And two, like it's one of those things you see it. And this is what the Jack and Will were saying at Fallow is they do all those. Have you been there?
No, but that's one of the spots on my hit list. I get their Instagram videos all the time. I've got to check it out.
I went the other week, but it's a massive place.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what they didn't. They did tell me the exact numbers, but and it's all day. It's all day.
Yeah.
But he was like, we want it to be convivial, and we want it to be have this energy. And I think the reason, if there's an energy, the service gets better. It almost sharpens the sword. Totally. And so they were saying, like, you know, if we can if we sense a vibe, because it's open kitchen as well, we just send out a shitload of shots, and it's like it brings the energy up. The service gets better.
Well, you know, I can tell you, working in bars, it's about the vibe of the staff as well. If staff are having fun, everyone is having more fun.
Yeah.
Like, and you're not having fun if you're kind of moping around and looking for something to do.
Yeah.
You've gone there to serve drinks and it's so quiet, so we've sent you out to clear out the fridges at the back, and you're scrubbing the fridges because we got to get you doing. That's not the fun part of working in the bar.
Yeah.
The fun part is serving the cocktails, and you know, it's because it's a buzz when you're behind the bar as well as out on the floor. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really believe with people you can pick things up via osmosis. So it's like, you know, someone may tell you to number one with say what Marco tells you directly is number one priority is to keep the restaurant alive. But I think with osmosis, and I get this with guests when I do the podcast, right? So we were interviewing. Do you know Itsu? Have you seen the brand Itsu? Yeah.
All everywhere, yeah.
Yeah. So
I've
Julian,
had it a few times.
oh, it's banging. But Julian's been on the podcast twice. He did Pret. I don't know if you guys have got Pret. Massive.
You know, I don't know if we have it in Australia, but I know
Pret's-
Pret. We must have it.
Yeah. It's banging. Actually,
I don't know if we've got it in Australia. I've just seen it 50 times on my way
actually,
here.
There's ADHD key in here, but there's a Mexican brand that is just launched in London, like a Mexican. I'm gonna have to get it because it was on my page the other day.
An
Australian brand. They've launched in Ireland. They just opened one in London, mate.
It's not Guzman y Gomez, is it?
Begins with a Z, I think.
Oh, Zembrero,
yeah.
Zembrero, yeah.
And
we work with them in Australia.
Yeah, they play hip hop in the stores. Well, they do in the UK.
Well.
I think it must be that, but it was because our quality of it's probably similar to the coffee. Our baseline of Mexican food is heinously shite.
Yeah.
So like
the revolution will come.
Yeah, the
revolution
revolution
it always comes.
will be televised as well. Yeah.
It always comes.
But sorry, what was I? Oh yeah, lessons from osmosis is with Julian is before the episode is this guy's on the blower to like the tiniest bit of ingredient that's going into his seaweed thing, and he's on it, right?
Yeah.
And then as soon as the pod's done, straight away back on his phone on a plane to fucking Japan, and it's like that obsession with product.
Yeah.
What's Marco taught you through osmosis that you could only learn through hanging out with him, through eating with him?
Trying to think what we learned just from this most recent.
When was the recent one? Just
2 weeks ago, I think we had him in Australia. Went to a bunch of restaurants, had some food, had some drinks, and also I've stayed with him a couple of times in Bath as well.
Oh, is that where he's?
He lives on this great property, which also doubles as like a B&B. You can stay there and eat at the restaurant. It's quite an experience.
Oh, really?
I do recommend it for anyone.
What's so good about it?
I mean, it's on these beautiful grounds. It's outside of Bath. It's in Rudlow.
Yeah. Oh, is it the Rudlow Arms?
Well, the Rudlow Arms.
Yeah.
That's his. That's his. Yeah,
that's where he lives there as well.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
That's his baby.
Yeah.
There, right? It's a great grounds. There's an awesome restaurant there. It's a cool place to be.
Yeah.
Really a well done. You know, really of period, but also like it's really like it feels like you're in it's like a bit movie star, you know?
Oh,
wow. In as tasteful a way as you can imagine. It's a very nice place to be.
Yeah. And what's he taught you about osmosis?
What have I learned from being with him? Look, how, like, he is, what I like about when we're dealing with, when we're talking about EatClub specifically is and this is not going to answer your question about osmosis at all, but I'll tell you what we enjoy about being with him. He's a busy guy, right? He's flying around the world. He's doing all kinds of things beyond Eat Club and much greater than Eat Club all the time. Every time we're with him, undivided attention, gets into the detail, interested in every bit of how it's going, and full of ideas for how to make it better. Someone that is endlessly busy and doing much bigger things in his life than Eat Club. It's cool. It's really it's good to be able to hang out with him. And
I think that's just such a again common uncommon advice. It's just the amount of times I'm sat with someone. Even ironically, this is the most hilarious thing, is at a restaurant, and because of emails on your phone and shit, I'm really honest, I don't know the last time I was actually present at a restaurant unless I was drunk, because I'm not,
as soon as you have a few drinks, phone away? Because that's from me. As soon as if I've drunk a few, work's done.
Yeah. I need a few to take the edge. Like, to be honest, I quite like on a Thursday or Friday going to the pub on my own and then just having a cold one and then just sort of boxing things off. It's just kind of a nice, relaxing way to do it.
It's a good lifestyle.
It has to be on my own, and then because if a friend's there, then it's almost like then you sort of just chinwag about the week and stuff like that, and then you're done. One thing I want to talk about is Aussie hospitality versus UK hospitality versus US hospitality. Yeah. Because I think, as I said, I've got a couple of mates, Aaron Trotman, who does Non. He's based where you guys are. And then my mate Mark Palmer actually moved to Melbourne a couple of years ago. And they've been saying, like, you've got to come over here and do a pod, do like a little tour series. He knows loads of restaurants because the two cities, London and Melbourne, are so similar but so kind of nuanced and different. Yeah. And actually our banter's way similar.
Totally.
Yeah, and that's what Mark's doing is he's setting up a thing that takes Aussie brands into UK and vice versa.
Cool.
Yeah, more retail brands.
Yeah.
But like, I think one of his business partner launched Oatly into Oz, and they've done Dash. Dash water. I think they're quite big in Oz, and they were saying it's actually so many brands look at going to America because it's the land of opportunity, but there's actually I think Oscar Wilde's got a quote, which is America and the US, the US and the UK are two countries divided by the same language. Yeah. And it's like, we're so similar but so different. What have you learned about the differences between UK and Oz? And then what do you think some of the challenges are with potentially getting to the US?
I'll tell you straight out why we're in the UK and not the US.
Yes.
From a technology perspective, just to start with, we've built a lot of conviction around our tap to pay card. And
not there, is it?
It's not there at all restaurants. And it's getting better. And I think probably 18 months and we'll be able to move Eat Club into the US as well. But right now, there is literally a hard technology barrier, which is we think we've created one of the best experiences that we can for this type of business. And it's really a big part of our success. We straight up can't do that at most restaurants in New York even. Yeah. It's quite phenomenal. And the whole tipping process and pulling...
because how does that come into it? Because the tipping process over there is mental.
Yeah.
So I went to New York a couple of years ago and I was sort of, again, flabbergasted by the fact that I couldn't do that, Apple Pay.
Yeah.
But how would that work with you guys?
Yeah, exactly through the method that we talked about. We read tips on point of sale.
Okay.
Yeah,
and then if it's the cash thing
through to the restaurant, you can pay. It doesn't. If you pay cash tips, you pay cash tips. That's outside of our system, and we don't see that at all.
But what is the actual? Because I don't really know specifically what is the situation there. They don't pay a service charge
in the US, particularly.
Yeah.
In the US, you've got what's technically compulsory, as compulsory as it gets. Because if you refuse to pay your tip, I don't know what's going to happen to you. You're walking
down the streets
fire.
Yeah.
When I lived in the US for a period of time.
Sick. Whereabouts?
In New York.
Oh, nice.
And when I first went to New York on a holiday when I was 21, tipping was 12%, and they were talking about it becoming 15%. While I was there, this was what the discussion was, and it's wherever you go, all the prices are listed ex-tax, not excluding tax. So if something's $20 on the menu, you've got to add your just under 10%, whatever their GST is. It's like 9. I think it's 9 point whatever. It's not quite 10%, so it's complicated. You've got to add that on top, and then your tip on top of that. So it ends up pretty much every price that you look at, it's plus tax plus tip. When I was living there, the tip was 18%, and it's just moved. It moved while I was there to about 20%. I did hear recently someone saying it's like 22, 25. Like it's becoming a lot. So if you can imagine, you look at a menu price in the US, you're adding your 10% tax and 20% tip. Everything is 30% more than what the menu says to start with. It's quite hard to get your head around.
Yeah, the US, I know it's weird because they're so forward thinking. Like, I mean, one of them, Silicon Valley, but they're so backward in some things. Like the airports, I think, are crap. I don't understand
All
it.
of them, yeah.
The airports, how can you basically create an iPhone, yet you can't create some sort of system to get people through the airport? It's wild.
It's easy to rag on the US. I do, for so many reasons, think it's an amazing place. But while I lived there, I did get this feeling that everything that they export is extremely forward thinking, all the products, all the technologies. But then it's like what they get to use internally is like all the crap that they couldn't sell somewhere else. Like it barely works.
That's such an interesting...
It really feels like that.
Yeah. Anything else you learned from just being... I think what you said, to understand it, you got to be in it. The fish has to be in the water to understand it, like...
It constantly... I've really enjoyed getting into the payment side of things, into the fintech side of the business, and without talking about too many specifics, I see that as the big forward opportunity for the product on the consumer side to become much more ingrained in payments and loyalty, which I think is going to be really interesting for the restaurant space as a whole. There's lots of things that once you see under the hood, there's some interesting stuff that you start to be able to
and then you almost
with.
get it. I think with the genius of putting it on someone's wallet is you're like tapping into that. Like I don't. That's pretty dumb. I don't actually have a wallet because I'm just so used to my Apple Wallet. But if my phone runs out of that RAS, I'm fucked.
And it happens, huh? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I should probably get one. But and then talk to me about the difference between, or the nuances between Melbourne and London, and what have been again 2D map, 3D terrain.
So first of all, fortunately, even more similar than what we thought. It seemed similar, but normally you're like, oh, we're going to get there and we're going to get thrown by a few things. But I'll tell you that they're quite trivial, but smaller nuances that are different in the management of the business between the two. So the first is the difference between how many purely independent restaurant owners in Australia. A lot of people have one restaurant. In London particularly, home of the small groups. I think you even might call them chains here, but we'd call them like a small group of restaurants.
Like a Dishoom and Caravan.
4 to 10 restaurants, sometimes the same brand name, sometimes not. They're different brands, but a lot of people are in either on their own or in some kind of syndicate with a small group of venues. That's quite a big change. And so it means in Australia, you're really dealing one-to-one, and it can be a very quick and easy process to sell because you're dealing with a single decision maker who knows what he wants for his restaurant and gets it. Slightly longer sell in the UK just naturally because you're dealing with more decision makers, but often it means you've got 3 or 4 or 5 venues instead of one venue at a time. So that's an interesting thing.
Why do you reckon there's not many? That really surprised me. Why do you reckon that is?
Why? I think maybe it's maybe more accessible. It's maybe less barriers to entry in Australia to get a restaurant started. London rents are probably significantly higher than lots of the places in Australia, I suspect. But it's quite stark. And even a restaurant that looks like a real pure independent restaurant in London, you walk in and it's like, oh yeah, I got 8 more down the road, you wouldn't know.
That's so interesting. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah. So that's one thing. Here's a really trivial one. This is just, maybe interesting to people that are looking to start selling something to restaurants or building a platform in the restaurant space. Australia is very much a cold call to get a meeting. In the UK, we find that restaurants aren't even answering their landlines during service. It is much harder to contact anyone via the phones. I suspect Australia is still a small place. I think there's less spam calls and stuff like that. But
I worked for that peanut butter company.
Yeah,
peanut butter startup.
Yeah.
So I was selling it into Ireland.
Yep.
A retailer called Ireland. when you're dealing with the big retailers over here, they don't want to do a face-to-face negotiation because it gives them more time to almost plan what they're going to say and then go back.
Yeah.
So I was taking that tact with this bloke in Ireland, and he would just say, "Call me," and it was like very much that was and I was like, "That's so much better because you could actually pick up the nuance of emotion and like how they're actually feeling." Like, because on an email it could be so pissy. Like, I wish our culture was more like that.
Yeah. Interesting
like,
that it's across not just hospitality as well. You just don't want to pick up the phone.
Yeah, just don't want to pick up the phone. It's weird. And it's like you could make... That's another thing I think restaurants, or not just restaurants, but just businesses in general could make way more money if they just had an old school sales line.
Yeah. Well, that's our view on it is. It's like, it's not dead. It's not like there is still room for that sort of direct selling, but it's just slightly different.
Yeah.
So our people have to often go in and establish a relationship face to face to get it started.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was doing with the peanut butter. You literally, if anything, it's actually you walk straight through the door.
Yeah.
Like my mate's got a beer brand called Local. Like it's a play on like being a local boozer, but also low calories. So it's quite a good name. But that's.
Well, it's, a marketer will tell you, "Oh no, you should." What we can do is we can get really good with the targeting to know where this restaurant is, and we'll be able to target this restaurant. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I know where the bloody restaurant is. It's right there.
Yeah. Like, common sense. What is, in terms of marketing B2B, again, it's complicated. What have you learned about that, or what's some of your big ideas or principles you've taken on that? Because it's both ways, isn't it? It's B2B and also B2C.
Yeah.
How do you find that riddle wrapped in the enigma?
I think it's still a riddle to us, to be honest with you. We haven't spent nearly as much time working out the marketing side on the B2B angle as we have on the consumer angle, because we've got this quite finely tuned sales process. But it's not to say that we don't need it. It just hasn't. We just haven't got to that point yet.
Yeah.
Maybe I might see you in a couple of years' time and say, "Oh man, I wish we got the B2B side of the marketing engine working earlier, because it's changed the game." It's going to be another one of those, until you're in it, you don't know.
Yeah.
But we haven't got that. We haven't got that to that point yet. We do really focus on the more linear sales strategy that we know. But we've made some hires recently. One priority is, it's when I have this conversation with a restaurant, similar to the conversation that we've had now, our intent and what we're trying to do and why we believe this is in the long-term benefit of restaurants can really come across. And when you talk to the restaurant one-to-one, that makes sense. We do want to try to make that more widely understood. Like, even on the consumer side, I think it's really important for a customer to understand when they go into a venue and tap for their 25% off, they haven't taken 25% away from the restaurant. They've added 30 or 40% that wasn't there before. And that B2B sell on the customer side is actually really important for the customer mindset as well. I think the truth is
they know they're helping a restaurant.
Most people don't, like, everyone thinks like that. Like, no one really wants to take anything from anyone. And that's not what we're
people are way more good natured than people make out.
Way more good natured.
Yeah.
Most people, I think most people would, I think a lot of people do know about that, and I think that's part of why we're successful. But it should be much more blanket. Like, you're not really getting an offer. You're spending money. Actually, you're don't worry about, because this is maybe part of the crux of it that we didn't discuss at all. Restaurants' price is often pretty arbitrary. They're often setting up their restaurant, deciding what they're going to put on the menu. They kind of try to work out how much of each thing is going to get ordered percentage-wise relative to another. And so you can start to work out, what do I need to price everything at based on my food cost to get my average food cost to a certain amount. But then you open the doors and you're busier or less busy than you thought you are. People order more or less of different things, and not a lot of restaurants, the really sophisticated operators would, but a lot of restaurants aren't adjusting their price very often. I mean, some restaurants never adjust their price, frankly. And the reality is that means your price is really pretty arbitrary. You've just decided what that price is. Should there be a price, and this is the airlines example. There isn't a price of an airline ticket. There just isn't.
How do they work it out on airlines?
Well, they've got their equations based on they know the minimum cost of running the airline. They know the marginal value of every customer that comes on. The more customers that come on, they would increase the staffing. That increase the amount of food on there. That would impact the amount of weight that's on the aircraft. That means there's more fuel used for the trip. That means they need to make more revenue on there. Like it would be a fluctuating equation based on how full it is at any one time. But you'll get to a certain capacity where the plane's taking off in, I don't know, plane's taking off in 5 days.
Yeah, 5 days, yeah.
And whatever seat's empty is empty. Someone paying, $50 is probably profitable at that point because all they need to do is cover whatever variable bits and pieces they give you. Yeah. It really changes. And sometimes you'll see prices like sometimes you'll book really last minute.
It's like
and you'll get a really good price.
Yeah.
But if you go too last minute, they know you need to fly there because something's happened and it's not going to be a cheap price at all. Like the last couple of flights on an airplane are incredibly expensive. That's because they're better off just having it there just in case you need that flight.
Yeah, it's like, again, it's like scarcity and loss aversion. You don't want to miss not getting on that flight, so you'll pay more.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's kind of like lastminute.com. Do you have lastminute.com?
Yeah.
For restaurants, there is kind of that. It's that element of.
It's another arrow in the same quiver, really. It's just
It's like another little analogy to make it.
The hotels is the same as airlines in a lot of ways. Like hotels, who knows what their actual price of a room is? They fluctuate depending on how full the restaurant is in the season. And we have a little graph on our website, which I think sums this up really well. A resort in Fiji or, where do you guys go to? The Canary Islands or something like that. Peak and off-peak times. And in the summertime or when the weather's warm, the price is really high because that's, they've got product market fit. In winter, it's the same product, but it's just in shit weather.
Hey, you're so good at making this so simple. I love it. It makes sense.
It's way cheaper in the winter. And that's over a year, and that makes sense. The thing why it's a bit more hard to understand on the restaurant side is the restaurants have that same seasonality, not only every week, but every day, and I'll explain. So every week, their winter months are their Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then they have their summer months. And then Monday comes along again, and they're back in winter. They literally have winter and summer every week. The resort has winter and summer once a year, and it's totally normal and understood that their prices are vastly different during the winter to the summer. If they kept their prices the same in winter, just no one would go. But they don't. They decrease it. They try and make it worth it. It's they try and give you something that's of value during that time, and they try to have product market fit at the time. So the restaurant has one price all week, even though technically some of those days are winter because less people want to drink, less people want to go out and party, they have less disposable income at those times. But then I would argue a restaurant has summer and winter every day because you've got 4 to 6 p.m. where no one really wants to dine.
Mate, your ability to make things so lucidly simple is genius. And I think it's... But if you just go... I know we briefly talked about your old man and, sort of lessons he was teaching you. But what were you like as a kid? Like, when did you sort of develop this thing of just looking at things and simplifying? Like, could you be able to pinpoint that where that came from, or what was you like at school?
I've been pretty curious the whole time.
Yeah.
I was the kid that was interested in sitting at the adult table and hearing what people were talking about.
Yes.
It's funny, the same, I told you the story about Dad about how his general mindset would be that everything's done and there's no way he could think of something that was groundbreaking that no one had done before. That's just his mentality. I should point out as well, my dad was born in a small island in Greece. He was a shepherd until he was 11 years old. Came to Australia as an 11-year-old who had, known nothing but really been in the mountains with a flock of sheep with his dad and brothers. That was his life. And then he comes to Australia. And
so what was he doing? What was he doing in Australia? Like, what made him go to Australia?
It was part of the big migration waves out of Southern Europe. Greece was 50s and 60s. A lot of Greeks left for multiple reasons. My dad particularly was very much economic reasons. They're on a small island with not a whole lot of opportunity, and so their family came to Australia, which is a very common story. I think Melbourne is the third largest Greek city, including the cities in Greece.
Wow.
Big Greek population there. We settled in Adelaide, which is another big Greek population as well. But he was. I tell you that my dad, although that first story is very much part of his personality, he was always interested in how things worked as well. I think being a mechanical fitter, being someone that's always working out machinery and pulling things apart and pulling them back together. If I was walking on the street with him with a kid, he'd always just point to something, to the point where he still does it a bit now, and it's annoying as an older person. But as a kid, I was fascinated by you know what that is? Do you know where that comes from?
Yeah. But also,
what does that stand for? Yeah, there's lots of that sort of stuff that I think I grew up with. He's a bit of a facts guy, and I think I've become a bit of a facts guy because of.
I also think as well, with the US, the US is ultimately was built as a nation of a load of mad fuckers who were right. I'm curious. I'm going to explore and see what's better and out there.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they are such as much as you were talking about. Some internally they're quite backwards. All their external exports are so forward thinking. Is because it is a culture of just an amalgamation of all these different people who cross the water and we're like, let's see what's happening here. Totally. And I think if your old man's a shepherd and then at 11 and then goes to Australia, that's pretty wild. So that's pretty baked in you as well, which is this ability just to be endlessly curious.
Totally. And it might be a little bit of the sort of, the migrant pressures wearing off as well. You kind of, you want to do something better than what your parents were faced with, essentially. That's a pretty common story, I think. But I mean, I didn't have that. We were a very, very normal family in Adelaide. You'd call it probably a lower middle class family, I would say. But it was never we never went wanting for things. It wasn't I wouldn't at all talk about having a hard migrant life like what my parents' generation would have had when they first got to Australia. It would have been pretty full on. But yeah, it's certainly. I was speaking on a different podcast in Australia a little while ago now, and I got asked a similar question, and I thought I really should have thought about that before the podcast. And now I've gone a couple of weeks, and I still haven't thought about it. I don't know exactly where it comes from, but it's been there from a very young age.
Yeah. Mate, final thing, and we'll wrap this up. I've absolutely loved this. It's kind of just, as I said, a sort of a buffet of curiosity for all my favourite things like behavioural economics, marketing, tech, growth, restaurants, hospitality, chefs. But where are you trying to take this? What's the end goal? When does... Yeah.
Look, we want to keep developing the technology, and we want to keep building more products that help effectively implement this idea of dynamic pricing more broadly within the hospitality space. We've got a lot of ideas that are coming out soon to take more of the guesswork out of when you should and shouldn't have offers on the platform, and that's gonna be some really exciting stuff. And then it's just about growing. We think this is a platform that one day will be one of the things that a restaurant ticks off when they're opening up their venue. I've got to get a booking system implemented. I've got to get my pods ready. I need to think about what dynamic pricing solution I'm going to use to make sure that I've got as many tables filled as much as I can. And this is, and I think this has been clear, but we didn't invent doing deals and offers in the hospitality space. It's been done before, but I think we've taken the idea and properly molded it to hospitality, and we want to continue doing that. We're pretty determined to continue evolving it so it becomes something as necessary to run your business, and not the sort of thing that you don't want to do but you feel you have to do. It's something that really makes sense from the economic standpoint. It just really helps you run your business.
Pan, that's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I fucking love that.
It's good to chat, mate.
So much fun, man. And it was just a really, really fun conversation. I think we just touched upon so many notes and kind of skied into all sorts of places. But yeah, my brain's buzzing. I can't wait to see what you can do with this.
I appreciate it, mate. Like the line of questioning. Very good.
Awesome.